Action!
And we are recording. All right.
I was going off Braveheart there for a second.
Who was?
I was.
You were going Braveheart because of your beard?
Yeah.
Okay. I like recording podcasts. Hold on, let me see. Hello! Ah!
Ah, woo! I call my microphone Crow, like from Mystery Science Theater 3000.
Okay.
It does what it wants. It's in my face, and it does what it wants. So.
It's so annoying. All right.
Wendigo.
Wendigo. Did you just say Wendigo?
I did.
Dude, that's creepy, bro.
I know.
Oh, Wendigos are scary, man.
I know.
Have you ever seen one?
Just in Supernatural.
Like the TV show?
Yeah, just in the first episode. I watched that recently.
Oh.
So that's why it's stuck in my head.
I've only watched the first season of that series. I've never got past it. I've tried to watch it, but it's just one of those series that it's been hard for me to get into for some reason. I don't know why, because it seems like it is everything that I'm into. Like, I like that kind of supernatural stuff, so I thought I would be a bit more like into it, but for some reason it's just not happening.
Oh, well, that's too bad. Yeah, I keep seeing like the super devoted fans online, like everybody that loves Supernatural, so I decided to start it.
So, have you ever encountered a Wendigo, like in real life?
I have not. No.
What about a skinwalker?
No, I wish.
Really? You wish
Yes.
you would encounter a skinwalker?
I just want the story.
I do too. I won't lie. I've been trying. I've been trying to make it happen.
Man, that'd be so cool. But then we'd be dead.
Would we though? I don't know if we would be dead.
I mean, that's a good point.
I think I could survive a Wendigo or a skinwalker if I were to meet one face to face.
Well, what tactic would you use to stay alive?
My personality. There's no tactic. I'm just going to strike up a conversation and get some answers.
You do have a heck of a personality.
I'm just going to be kind and just be like, I pet it.
Would you offer it fruit or food of some sort?
Yeah, maybe a steak.
Ooh.
Like a ribeye.
Do you travel with ribeyes?
I should.
I think you should now. I think that's almost necessary.
I talked to a highway patrolman from New Mexico.
Uh-huh.
And he told this story of pulling this car over in the middle of the desert on one of the highways out there.
Uh-huh. He
said the person got out of the car, turned into a dog, and ran away from the car. And this is like a Native American highway patrolman. And I was like, is that a true story? He's like, 100% true. It was the weirdest damn thing.
There's so many questions I have.
I was like, what? That's amazing. Did you get a camera? Did you take some pictures?
Oh, man, there's so many things I want to ask.
I know.
This guy.
Anyway, all right.
All right. Well, here we are again, sir.
We are. We're here. We're doing the podcast. This is Secret Level. It is a GeekTyrant production. I am your host, Joey Parr, and joining me is Billy the Fisher.
Oh, the one and only.
The Fisher.
Yes. I'm so happy to be back. I do miss, when we take in extended periods of time between recording, I miss this immensely.
What?
Recording, just talking about stuff.
Talking, not being introduced every time we record.
For a while there, I expected it every time I walked into a place.
I think I just need to start introducing you wherever we go when we hang out. Like, we're gonna walk in to In-N-Out, and I'm just gonna be like, "Hey, everybody, I'm Joey Parr, and this is the amazing Billy Fisher."
Yeah. So I used to do that to Free when we go through the drive-thru.
Oh, well, that makes sense.
because it would embarrass him so bad that he would not stop giggling.
By the way, Free is the co-founder of GeekTyrant.com.
He is. We're hoping to get him on the podcast. We're working out the kinks, but he should be on here soon.
He's a busy man.
Busy.
He's trying to save the world, like, for real.
Like for reals.
We're talking about movies, and our partner is like really doing world-changing stuff. It's crazy.
Right. We're planning on doing this. We have plans, but it takes a podcast to save the world.
A movie podcast.
A movie podcast.
A geek podcast where we just talk about geek stuff all day, all night.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean,
we're saving
it's
the world one movie, video game, TV show, and book at a time.
Oh, it's fantastic. Oh, man.
But
so,
go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, that is our ultimate goal. But, you got to bear with us. We will be there one day.
One day.
One day. So what were you going to say, buddy?
Oh, I was going to say that the next step to taking us there is we're going to talk about John Carpenter's
Big Trouble in Little China.
Yep. Man, this movie is fun.
Yeah. I mean, even if there wasn't anything crazy going on in the background, if there's no stories with it, I'd still want to talk about it because it's going to be one of my favorite movies.
It's so crazy and weird and fun and charming.
It really is.
And I love Kurt Russell.
Yes.
And when I watched the movie, I watched it with my wife and one of my daughters.
Mm-hmm. How'd that go over?
They did not like it.
And we'll spit water everywhere. Yeah.
They just could not get into it. It was really hard for them. And I'm like, I built it up like, this is like one of my favorite films from the 80s. It's so much fun. It's so good. And I turn it on and I'm like, look, see how awesome it is. And they're just like, yeah, this is great.
At least they humored you and watched it with you. That's nice.
Yeah, that was, they'd probably say that was a waste of their time.
I mean,
if you didn't grow up with this movie though, like if you didn't watch it as a kid in the time that it was released, sure, I get it. You're going to watch it now, you're going to look at it, the effects are all outdated. It's just a different kind of movie. It's a movie from the 80s.
Look, you say that the effects are outdated, but when for some reason they must have spent all their effects budget on doing James Hong's low pan makeup, because everything about that guy was on point. Whether he was an old man or he's the young guy, the makeup on that dude is on point. But we'll talk about that in a little bit.
But I enjoyed it again.
Of course you did.
I was happy with it.
I think anybody growing up in our time period loves that movie. I
haven't met anyone that grew up with it that hasn't enjoyed the movie. So
right. It's weird and it's fun and it makes everyone happy. Well, apparently not your daughter and your wife, but
no, it did
else.
Not make them happy. They couldn't wait for it to be over.
I kind of wish I was there. I do. All right. Well, Joseph.
Yes.
Anything new and interesting happened to you this week?
Well, I didn't go on any adventures.
Dang it.
Which is kind of a bummer. My whole family got COVID.
Ugh, I'm sorry, buddy.
My wife, my 2 kids, they all got it. We were trapped in the house. Didn't really go anywhere, do anything. And I'm like, all right, if I'm going to get it, now's the time.
Right.
Well, Bill, I didn't get it.
Don't feel bad, buddy. I still haven't gotten it either.
Well, this is the thing. I haven't been sick in over 20 years. I haven't had a fever. I haven't thrown up. The most I've had are allergies. That's it. Like nothing else. I am a specimen of perfect health. My superpower is not getting sick. I have that power.
So you're essentially the next step in evolution, huh?
I am. And I'm thinking that I should donate my body to science after I die so that they can figure this out. Because my body might be the cure for the world.
You know? I mean, I wouldn't doubt it.
I don't know why I haven't gotten sick. And for those of you who are like, yeah, right. Like, no, I'm dead serious.
No,
Like-
this is a legit thing.
And I thought for sure that I would get COVID. Like, I was like, it's this thing. I'm going to get it. Everyone's getting it. So let me get it and just get it over with.
Right.
But I didn't get it. I'm good.
Huh. So in the time that you were spending while your family was sick, what did you do? Did you find anything new or anything fun?
Well, I played a lot of VR.
Ah, yes. That sounds like fun.
Yeah, pistol whip.
Oof.
I'm all over the pistol whip.
So fun.
I spent so much time on pistol whip, dude. Just shooting
anytime-
people and upping my scores and all kinds of weird things.
So pistol whip has whenever I think about it, I have a physical reaction to it.
Uh-huh.
My thighs burn just thinking about it. Because I couldn't walk for 3 days after we played that at my
It's
house.
such a good exercise.
It is.
And you get
I
to
need it.
shoot people. I mean, look, I'm not saying like, oh, I'm shooting people, but, like that's a good thing. But yeah, you get to shoot people. I mean, that's what it is.
Right. And there's no faces on the people. They just look like,
They're mannequins that are running.
Mannequins.
They're animated
Exactly.
mannequins.
And so, see, you get to have fun all around.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You
I
shoot
like that.
digital people, I should say.
There we go. Digital people. That would be scary if there was mannequins running around. That freaked me out a little
I'd
bit.
actually be okay with that.
Really?
Yeah. I'd be
Kinda
okay
like
with
Doctor
mannequins
Who.
running around town.
I got you.
I also watched one of my favorite older films from the 70s
Uh-huh.
that I watched it again. I'm like, we've got to talk about this on one of our episodes. So, The Man Who Would Be King.
Wow.
Yeah, Sean Connery, Michael Caine.
Uh-huh.
I love that movie so much.
Do you know when the last time I watched that movie was?
When?
When we were in high school.
You should watch it again, Billy.
I should watch it again.
You
when?
were probably at my house.
I was at your house.
And we were watching it on a VHS cassette that my dad had just bought for like
is
$10
Absolutely true.
at
100%.
the clearance section of like Suncoast Video or something.
Right. He was so proud of that.
Because he introduced us to this great movie, and
Yes.
I loved it, and it's
Yep.
like one of my favorite movies now.
Yeah, your dad was ahead of the curve on a lot of things. Because do you remember when he brought home Game of Thrones, the first book of the Game of Thrones
Yeah.
series?
Yeah, and to get away from everybody to read it, he sat in his van in the front of the house because he didn't want to read it in the house when we were all there because he was bugged. So he had to like go to his office, which was the van out in front of the house.
It got to the point that I'd have to stop by the van to say hi before I went in.
I know.
And to make sure that he had the windows down and he wasn't burning himself up in there. Because sometimes he'd forget and just leave the windows up.
So
Yep.
funny.
So funny. I was telling somebody about that the other day because I was like, you and I got into Magic when it first came out.
Yeah.
I have one of the original starter decks unopened somewhere in my storage.
I wish I still had my stuff. I don't know where it's at though.
I have to find it. I have to find it. Yeah, but yes. So you
What
watched a good movie.
Yeah, what about you? What have you been up to?
Okay. So I reverted back to one of our episodes and I got the book The Never-Ending Story.
Oh, the book.
The book.
The
and
book.
I started reading it.
Yes.
Yep. There's some changes in the book from the movie.
Sure.
In the movie, it's called Fantasia. In the book, it's Fantastica. Yeah. Yep,
Yes. Fantastica.
yep. But here's the thing. So I'm only halfway through the book,
Okay.
but I'm almost done with the story from the movie.
Okay.
So I'm interested to see what happens. From where I'm at, it's after Falcor and Atreyu split, and Atreyu's wandering around the world trying to figure out what to do now because he feels like he's lost all hope. And this is where, eventually he runs into Gamork, and in the movie, that's what happens.
Yeah.
I have no clue where we're going with this. But it's such a good book. It's so well written. I can see why the original author was upset that it wasn't made the way the book was.
Sure.
But it was too big. Like for the 80s, the wasps that form into the shape of a spider and attack both Falcor and Atreyu, at the time they couldn't have done that.
Yeah.
And the cloud giants, they couldn't have done that.
They can now.
They can now.
Do you think they'll remake it?
I sure as heck hope so.
And that would
But
be
the
weird.
It would be weird, but the one thing I am so happy about that they didn't do in the movie is that in the book, Artax talks.
Okay.
So the scene where we lose Artax is so much worse. So much worse.
What does he say? What is he saying? Is he just like, help me?
No, he's just saying.
Help me.
He tells Atreyu, he's like, I've lost all hope. I'm going to die. Go. Just keep going, man. I can't do this anymore.
Wow.
I'm too depressed. There's no hope for me anymore. You got to go on.
Whoa.
Yeah. It sucks.
You look like you're going to cry, Billy.
It's horrible, dude. It's horrible. But yeah, it's so much more colorful as far as they explain they give the background of the different creatures in Fantasia a little bit more, so you get their background. But you can also see the characters, because like he describes the characters in the book how you see them in the movie. So they got that accurate. Like they made the racing snail and the rock biter and all that. He describes them like that. So what you're getting on the screen is almost an exact replica of what he's saying.
Cool.
Except for Atreyu's not green in the movie, but he is in the book. Yeah, so that
I like it.
That's
I
what
like it.
Oh, and I watched. So I binge things, but I give it time. Like I don't watch things overnight, but I watched a show called Vigil, which is a British crime drama.
Okay.
That takes place on a submarine.
Ooh.
And yeah.
That sounds fun.
Yeah.
I love
So
stories
good.
set on submarines for some reason. They don't make enough good movies with submarines.
They don't. And
It's just a great setting. I love the claustrophobic atmosphere of
Yes,
it and everything.
and they use that so well in that movie or in that show.
And it's just
You should watch it.
fascinating. Like that
Yes.
people spend like months on these little ships underwater.
Right.
I love it.
Right. And yeah, so if
I
you get
want
a
to
chance,
do it just for fun
do it. I give you permission.
with a skinwalker on board.
I don't know.
I do. I
Huh.
know.
That seems really. I don't think that.
And some steaks.
I don't think the ride would last as long as you think it would. I'm just saying.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So, yeah. On that note,
Let's get into the synopsis, shall we?
let's do it.
This is the synopsis for Big Trouble in Little China. Kurt Russell stars as Jack Burton, a big, talking, wisecracking truck driver who's suddenly hurled into a wild adventure even he could never invent. At the root of all, he could never invent? That's so weird.
It's horse crap.
All
but
right, here we go.
Continue on.
I just need to do it one more time. It threw me off.
he could never invent that. There's no way.
Okay.
All right.
And this is the for real synopsis. Okay, here we go.
That's what's fantastic about it.
Kurt Russell stars as Jack Burton, a big, talking, wisecracking truck driver who's suddenly hurled into a wild adventure even he could never invent. At the root of all of... he could never invent.
He can't do it.
Okay.
Sorry.
Nope. I'm just gonna go. I'm just moving ahead. At
Might
the
as
root
well.
of at the root of it all is Lopan, a 2,000-year-old evil magician who rules an empire of spirits beneath San Francisco's Chinatown. Doomed to a fleshless existence, he can only be saved by a green-eyed Asian beauty. When the fiancé of Jack's friend is kidnapped by Lopan's minions, Jack goes to the rescue. He finds himself dodging demons, grappling with goblins, and facing baffling terrors like the room of the upside down hell as he battles his way through the labyrinth of Lopan's dark domain. That, my friends, is probably the best synopsis and representation of what this film is.
Oh my gosh.
But I love that, like, Jack Burton could never invent anything like this.
Right. I mean, he does sit there and talk on the CB radio inventing stories about himself, so maybe that's what they mean?
I guess. Dodging demons, grappling with goblins, baffling terrors. Baffling terrors!
And upside down hell.
Yep.
Sounds great.
And we know where the upside down came from in Stranger Things.
Yep.
Came from Big Trouble in Little China. That's where that series is going. Just watch.
That would be amazing. You see Jack Burton and Lopan fighting in the background. Fantastic.
That would be pretty awesome.
I would love that.
Actually, if you think about it, remember the scene when Lopan and Egg Shen, they're fighting, like it's at the climax of the movie, and they're fighting with that real weird supernatural realm. You know, they put their pinkies together and they're like, right? And it like, yeah, and it forms this like supernatural realm where these two fighters are in there fighting.
Yes.
And then like Lopan's like, you could never beat me. But it's like, that didn't do anything. Like, he beat him, but it didn't, like, kill him in real life. Is it like a video game? Like a supernatural, mystic, magic video game that they just play?
That's the original VR, bro.
Yeah, you're absolutely right.
Because no one got hurt.
No one got hurt. And they just, two warriors were just fighting each other, and they're, like, got their pinkies all, like, grasped together, and they're like freaking out, like their faces are clenching, and they're like, no, yeah.
They were really cool close-ups though in that. The guy who plays Egg Shen is just,
There was like a lot of kung fu breathing sounds in this movie.
Yes.
And a lot of weird noises that these martial artists like put out in the world.
Yes. It was fun.
There's like stuff like that all day.
That, my friends, is high quality podcasting.
Then there's the breathing. Stuff like that. I love it. I loved it.
It was fantastic.
Because I used to do all that stuff when I was a kid anyway, when we played Kung Fu.
Right. Well, I always thought if you took breaths like thunder, like did the like you'd get more powerful.
And then there's the great sound effects, like when they're throwing punches and stuff.
Yes.
Like you don't hear sound effects like that in movies anymore. Like those you actually never heard those sound effects a lot, even back then, because they were so just unique to this movie. Like when they come down, like when the three elemental demons would come down from the sky, and they'd just be like, they'd start like showing off their kung fu skills, and whenever they moved their hands, they just made those really fun, weird sounds.
Right.
But it was different.
Yeah, it's like rubbing cloth together. It was like I can't even imagine. I can't do it. But thunder, lightning, and rain.
Yep.
Those 3 of the best bad guys in any movie. I love those guys. They should have
love
their
them
own
too.
movie. Yeah.
My wife and kid, though, they didn't understand what was going on.
They have the powers of thunder, lightning, and rain.
I know. It's awesome.
Come on.
Yeah.
Cheese and crackers, people.
They were actually, obviously they were like the inspiration of Mortal Kombat.
Right,
Like-
right. Raiden is definitely lightning from that movie.
Yeah. So,
Yeah, but it was fun. I love this movie. So, yeah. All right. So, I don't know about you, but I think Kurt Russell was perfect as Jack Burton.
oh yeah.
That
Hands
was-
down. 100%.
No one else.
He is
could
Jack
do what
Burton
he did.
in real life.
He absolutely. He just continued to be Jack Burton after that movie was released.
Yeah, he was actually afraid to star in the movie because he had just made a string of bad movies that flopped at the box office. So he was like, when he asked John Carpenter about it, he told a Carpenter told Kurt that it didn't matter to him. He just wanted to make the movie with him. Like I don't care if you had a string of bad movies. I just want to work with you. You're the guy, right?
Which is okay. So this is crazy to me to think about, because maybe financially the Thing didn't make a lot of money, but that is still one of the scariest movies.
It was
I've
a
ever
box
seen.
office. It was a box office flop. 100%.
Oh my
That movie
gosh.
did not do well at the box office. It didn't hit its stride or have its audience till after it was released on VHS and DVD.
Idiots.
I know. So
Such a
many
fun
people
movie.
missed out on seeing this movie on the big screen.
Right.
It's crazy to me.
See, that's why we need to own our own movie theater so that we could show these movies on the big screen, so people can appreciate them.
That would be awesome.
Yes.
To star in the film, Kurt Russell actually turned down the lead role of Connor McLeod in Highlander to be in this movie.
But that's okay.
But yeah,
I'm
it's
okay with
fine.
that.
I think this was a much better role for him anyway.
Right? And Christopher Lambert needed to be Connor McLeod.
Yeah.
It was just the way it should have been. So it worked out.
But
I'm okay with it.
But before Kurt Russell came on board, according to an old article in Starlog magazine, you remember Starlog?
Starlog, yes.
Yeah, I do. Carpenter said that he initially went after Clint Eastwood and Jack Nicholson for the role of Jack Burton.
No.
Yeah. Yep.
They're great actors, don't get me wrong, but I think they wouldn't have hit the comedic timing.
They're both very different, and I don't see either one of them in the role. Carpenter said in the interview, I hope to get a major star because I thought I would have to compete with Eddie Murphy. Fox wanted Kurt, though, because they thought he was up and coming and hot. I met with him. We talked about the project. Suddenly I realized, wait a minute, this guy could be Jack Burton. So he
he
saw the
absolutely
light when
was.
he met with him. But
Right.
it's really weird to think that Clint Eastwood and Jack Nicholson could have been in this role because I, for the life of me, cannot imagine either one as Jack Burton. Like, delivering those lines, those classic lines,
Right.
that attitude that Russell brought to it. Neither one of them have that. It would have been a completely different character.
Yeah, and I always thought that Jack Burton's, like, his charisma came from like a comedic mashup of both Clint Eastwood and John Wayne. Like, I thought that's what he was like going for. He was trying to be like those guys.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. And real quick, though, Jeff Bridges was also considered because Carpenter worked with him on Starman. And so Bridges was also... And that That would have been an interesting take. I like him more than I like Eastwood or Nicholson.
Right. And I think actually that probably would have been fun because he's got that quirky little way of doing things. Yeah, I could see that.
Yeah. But you're right about Burton. He based his character on John Wayne.
Uh-huh. Oh, see.
And when he was in Escape from New York, he based his character Snake on Clint Eastwood. So there's kind of he's like trying to channel that classic Western vibe, which makes sense because the original film was written as a Western. Like when it was pitched to the studio, Big Trouble in Little China was pitched to the studio, it was an old time Western. It was not set in modern times. Carpenter decided to set it during modern times later on during the production.
Okay. Wow, that would have made it so strange.
But you can see the Western influence all throughout it. I mean, Jack Burton's wearing like cowboy boots.
Right. He's calling people partner.
It's such a weird costume choice.
The boots and the tank top.
The boots, the tank top. Yep.
Yeah, I mean, okay.
Well, like like the mention of Jack Burton's truck being stolen in the film, that whole thing that he went through, that whole like side story.
Right.
That was originally his horse in the original script.
Okay, so this makes sense. I mean, because like, if you look at it, like the standoff in the alley was like an old school standoff in a Western.
Yeah.
You know, I'm coming from one side of the town, you're coming from the other. Here we go. So yeah, okay, but for some reason, it fits so much better in modern times.
Because it gave something fresh and different. It brought this like mysticism into modern times. I don't recall seeing a lot of movies that brought in like ancient Chinese lore and these fantastical creatures and stuff in modern times. So it was kind of fun for me as a kid, even now. The first version of the screenplay was written by first-time screenwriters Gary Goldman and David Z. Weinstein. Goldman had been inspired by a new wave of martial arts films that had, and I quote, all sorts of weird actions and special effects shot against this background of Oriental mysticism and modern sensibilities. So they had written this Western. It was set in the 1800s. Jack Burton was a cowboy who rides in the town. And they just envisioned combining that with the fantasy elements with the Western civilization. Goldman said in an interview with Entertainment Weekly, ours was about a cowboy in Chinatown, and specifically mentions 1899. Instead of a truck driver, Jack Burton worked providing meat to feed the Chinese workers who were building the railroad.
That's kind of cool.
So this is how this all went down. Are you ready to see the shift in everything?
I am ready.
All
Let's
right.
do this.
So they submitted the script to the studio in 1982. They had to do a rewrite, but they still didn't like the results of how the Western was turning out.
Okay.
The problems largely came from the fact that it was set in the turn of the century San Francisco, which affected everything in the style, the dialogue, action. 20th Century Fox asked Goldman to rewrite the script, and he rejected the request after they just asked for all these major alterations. He was angered when the studio wanted to update it to a contemporary setting. The studio then removed the writers from the project. However, they still wanted credit for their contributions. The studio brought in screenwriter W.D. Richter to exclusively rewrite the script, as he felt that the Wild West and fantasy elements didn't work together. The screenwriter modernized everything. Almost everything in the original script was discarded except for Lopan's story. It's the one thing that stuck. Richter realized what it needed wasn't a rewrite, but a complete overhaul. It was a dreadful screenplay. This happens often when scripts are bought and there's no intention that the original writers will stay on. He wrote his own draft of the script in 10 weeks. Goldman contacted Richter and suggested that he should not work on the project. Richter told him, "I'm sorry the studio doesn't want to go forward with you guys, but my turning it down is not going to get you the job. They'll just hire someone else." Fox wanted to deny Goldman and Weinstein writing credit and eliminated their names from the press releases. They wanted only Richter to have credit. But later, the Writers Guild of America went ahead and determined that Goldman and Weinstein get a written by credit on the script.
Okay.
However, Richter did get an adaptation by credit for his work on the script. John Carpenter was very disappointed that Richter did not get the proper screenwriting credit because of the ruling. Carpenter made his own additions to Richter's rewrites, which included strengthening the Gracie Law role and linking her to Chinatown, removing a few action sequences due to budgetary restrictions, and eliminating material deemed offensive to Chinese Americans.
Kind of ahead of his time, huh?
Yeah, but at the same time, there were some protests
Okay.
for how the Chinese were portrayed in the film.
Oh, I got you.
We'll get into that later.
Okay.
So once Russell was involved and he started to dig into the character, there were just a lot of different ways for him to figure out how to approach Jack, which was the right way to bring this character to life. And he says that he didn't know if there was any way that would be interesting enough for this movie. Like, he wasn't sure he was going to be able to pull it off.
Okay.
After talking to Carpenter about it and reading the script a few times, he gained insight into the character and liked the notion of playing, and I quote, "a hero who has many faults. Jack is and isn't the hero. He falls on his ass as much as he comes through. The guy is a real blowhard. He's a lot of hot air. Very self-assured, a screw-up. At the heart, he thinks he's Indiana Jones, but the circumstances are always too much for him." It's a perfect description of the character.
It is, and you could see certain scenes in there where something new happens, something magical happens, and he just goes, "Oh, come on." Like, Indiana Jones never had to go through this. But yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And the other thing too that they wanted to do with the Jack Burton character is Carpenter envisioned the story in the film as an inverse of traditional scenarios in action films, with a Caucasian protagonist helped by a minority sidekick. So in this movie, Jack Burton, despite his bravado, is constantly portrayed as rather bumbling. In one fight sequence, he even knocks himself unconscious before the fight begins. It's Wang Chi, on the other hand. He is constantly portrayed as the highly skilled and competent character.
Right.
Carpenter
And
said,
he is.
Yeah, and Carpenter explained, Jack Burton is a guy who was a sidekick but doesn't know it. He's an idiot blowhard. He's an American fool in a world he doesn't understand. And that comes off very clear throughout the movie.
It absolutely does. He's that classic character. It's like if the sidekick got to be the focus of a movie.
Yeah. Well, and that's, basically, you're absolutely right. And it was explained in Entertainment Weekly did this whole thing on, like, an anniversary thing on Big Trouble in Little China back in 2016. And, like, Jack was, like, the main guy who's, like, marketed. So you're absolutely right in that. So it's like he's the middle of the poster, but in reality, Jack is not Batman. Jack is Robin. And in that article with Entertainment Weekly, Russell said, the real lead was Wang Chi. Jack Burton is a guy who is a sidekick but doesn't know it. And again, they just call him an idiot, blowhard, American fool, all that stuff. They just kind of rehash that. But it's interesting how that plays out over the course of the movie.
Right. Yeah. Like, he gets to be a part of the group, but everybody in the group is just kind of rolling their eyes at him like, yeah, he's just coming along for the ride.
And what's funny about this is that the head of 20th Century Fox at the time, Carpenter said that he never was able to wrap his head around Burton and how the character was portrayed. He kept complaining that Burton wasn't heroic enough.
He tried to be.
And it's funny. So basically the opening scene of the movie was added to help make Jack appear more heroic.
There you go. Yeah. Yeah, it worked, though. It definitely worked. It set in place that he thinks he's the hero of his story.
Exactly.
But, I mean, he was good for one thing. He got them into the brothel. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
His bravado was exactly what was needed to get them through that one step.
Yeah, exactly.
And after that, he was just, his part was done, so he was just along for the ride. But yeah, that was his hero moment. He may think everything else was his hero moment, but that was his one hero moment in the movie.
But you know what? Like, I love that he's like the sidekick in it because it makes the movie so much more entertaining.
Yeah.
I love that he's this bumbling guy who's thrust into this insane situation. He's a truck driver who likes to do his own audio podcasts over the CB radio of his truck.
Right. Absolutely. He was the original podcaster.
He was just doing it over the CB. That's what he did. I love that aspect of that good old Jack Burton would do. You know, that good old Jack Burton. I love every quote.
You know what Jack Burton would say.
You know what Jack Burton would say. I love all of that stuff. So funny.
He thinks he's imparting great words of wisdom to the masses.
I know. And then it's like after he goes through all this madness, he just reverts back into his old ways, and he gets back on the road like nothing happened. He's got his truck. He even leaves the girl behind.
Right. Yeah.
Like, aren't you gonna kiss her? No. No.
No. That's never gonna get old. Yeah.
But that's the other thing that I loved about the movie, how it's like he doesn't even act like a hero at the end. He's just like, he just packs up, leaves, doesn't want the girl.
No, he just wanted his truck.
He could get the girl if he wanted to, but he's not the hero of the movie. He knows it. So he's just going to go back to his life.
Wang is the true hero. He got his girl. There we go.
Yep.
You know, Gracie just kind of fell into it.
Yeah, exactly. But speaking of Gracie, let's talk about Gracie. Jack Burton's love interest in the movie, constant source of aggravation. The studio wanted Carpenter to cast a rock star in this role. They want a big rock star to play her.
Okay.
Carpenter just had one person on his mind, and that was Kim Cattrall. The studio did not like the idea of casting Cattrall because at the time she was really only known for starring in raunchy comedies like Porky's and Police Academy, right?
Right. So
and she was also doing Broadway at the time. Broadway is like her big thing back then. That's where she kind of made her living on Broadway. But she was drawn to this movie because of the way her character was portrayed. She said in an interview, "I'm not screaming for help the whole time. I think the humor comes out of the situations in my relationship with Jack Burton. I'm the brains and he's the brawn."
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Again, Carpenter was a forward thinker.
Right. And I would like to think that this is the movie that launched her into stardom.
Sure.
After this, she did Mannequin.
Well, Kurt Russell too, by the way. Like, it launched both their careers.
Right. He went on to do Overboard immediately afterwards.
Yep.
Essentially the same guy, just different settings.
Yep.
You know? Crude, wears a tank top, cowboy boots, jeans. Yep. Same thing. But, I mean, yes, this is kind of like a starting off for both of them. They kind of go, their careers go up after this point.
Yeah.
Who's to say they wouldn't do it? But I think Big Trouble in Little China really, set them off. So what did you think of Kim Cattrall? When you think of her characters, Gracie Law in Big Trouble in Little China, what do you think?
She was great in it. Like, I have no problems. I like Kim Cattrall.
I think she did a good job. That's kind of how I saw her from there on in, though. Any role that I saw her in, I thought of her as the bossy, take control kind of character. And she did that so well at that point.
No, you're absolutely right. While we're kind of on casting, Jackie Chan was Carpenter's first choice to play Wang Chi in the movie.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Which would have been, like, wild, right? Like, Jackie Chan in the 80s. And, like, kind of crazy because he wasn't, like, a huge star yet. He was, like, really up and coming, like, into his own around the 80s, right?
Right.
And because it wasn't until the 90s where he started making all those films like Rumble in the Bronx and like those kind of films that we all kind of like latched onto when we were in high school. But yeah, he was Carpenter's first choice, but the producer was totally against it because he felt Chan's English was not good enough after seeing a performance of his in Battle Creek Brawl and The Protector.
Okay.
So after he saw those films, the producer's like, no, we can't have Chan. But Carpenter wanted Chan after the success of Police Story, and Chan ended up declining the role. He did get the offer, but he declined it. And Dennis Dunn ended up being cast in the role.
Which is too bad. Like, we didn't see much of Dennis Dunn after this. He was so good in that movie.
I know. I don't know what happened. It's just one of those things where it's like you see this guy give this fun performance in this fun movie, and then you don't see much of him after that. It was kind of a bummer.
Yeah, it was a bummer because I really liked him in this. He was a well-rounded character for the movie. So I don't know. It's just too bad we didn't see him after that.
Yep.
I mean, he was in The Last Emperor, which was a great movie, but he was not like the main character guy in it.
Yeah.
You win some, you lose some.
There were actually some issues that kind of arose during this whole thing, during the production and stuff, because it's during that time John Carpenter learned that another film was in development that had a similar theme. That film was the 1986 movie The Golden Child. And it was going to be released at the same time.
No.
Carpenter was actually asked to direct The Golden Child as well.
Really?
Yeah. It's just crazy. But Carpenter said in an interview, how many adventure pictures dealing with Chinese mysticism have been released by the major studios in the past 20 years? For two of them to come along at the exact same time is more than mere coincidence.
Man. But that wasn't the only time it's happened, because you remember we got The Prestige. And
sure, but remember, this was the 80s, dude.
Yeah.
You weren't getting, like, The Prestige and, what was the other one you were going to say? The Illusionist.
The Illusionist.
Yeah.
Which were both fantastic movies.
Exactly. Anyway, so to beat the rival production, Carpenter went in production in October of 1985 so that he could open in July 1986, 5 months before The Golden Child, which came out during Christmas.
Perfect.
So it ended up working out in the end, but Carpenter was like pretty upset.
But he's got a point. Like, that's such a random storyline to have two of the same movie like that coming out at the same time. That's not a coincidence.
Yeah. When the movie did actually come out, or actually when they started doing test screenings for the movie, the reaction they got from the audiences were overwhelmingly, and this I'm quoting, overwhelmingly positive. At both Russell and Carpenter and the studio, they expected this movie to be a huge hit because audiences were eating it up at the test screenings. They were loving it. But the studio didn't really do anything to promote the film. So it ended up being a box office bomb.
Which is unfortunate. But when it was released in the summer of '86, it went up against one of the biggest movies of all time.
Yep. Aliens.
Like, how do you compete with
Yeah, I know. That's like crazy.
I love Aliens. Aliens is a fantastic movie.
Aliens is the first.
It's just
Aliens is the first R-rated film I've ever seen. That was the first R-rated movie my dad took me to see in the movie theater.
wow.
Yeah.
Go,
and I
Joe.
loved every second of it. But we'll talk about that another time. But yes, Aliens is great.
We will get into Aliens
But
eventually.
I also love Big Trouble in Little China. But it's weird to think that those two movies came out around the same time.
Right?
Because they're so different. And like one has, like, there's just completely different films, but one has like so much more production value than the other. And it's like, they're almost like one's a B movie and one's this like really big budget, awesome, it's crazy.
It stinks because Aliens is one of those movies that's in the upper echelon of special effects, like Jurassic Park.
Yeah, those effects still hold up to this day. They still look great. Like you can watch it in like 4K and it's just like beautiful, you know.
Yeah, we're not turning this. Yeah,
but you watch, Big Trouble in Little China with all those details and stuff. You're like, whoa, yikes!
Like the creature with the one eye is still kind of Harryhausen-esque.
Yeah, exactly.
Stop motion.
But it was fun though. That's the thing. It was fun.
Right, and that's what made it such a great movie. It was like nothing else of its time, and I don't think there's really been anything close to it. The Golden Child is good, but it doesn't feel like the same kind of movie.
Yeah.
The Golden Child is more serious, as where Big Trouble in Little China is. There's going to be a joke somewhere in every scene.
Every scene. It's funny. It's just every scene is funny.
It's funny to watch Jack Burton fail continuously.
Yeah.
And everyone else be cool as heck.
Yeah, and Carpenter and Russell believe that the reason the studio didn't promote the film or push it is because they had no idea how to promote it. Which tells me they needed a new whole marketing team because that movie should have been an easy sale. Right.
I mean, the action sequences alone. Dude, you know the hand symbol that that they do? The good guys team, Wang's team, the what were they called? They were the Chang Sing, the cool guys.
Yeah. Yeah.
I still do that to this day.
And why wouldn't you?
Right. Unfortunately, people don't know what I'm doing to them. I'm like essentially giving them a thumbs up, but they think I'm crazy. It's not going to stop me. I'm going to keep it up.
Yeah. But in regards to the whole marketing thing, Russell said, this is a difficult picture to sell because it's hard to explain. It's a mixture of real history of Chinatown and San Francisco blended with Chinese legend and lore. It's bizarre stuff. There are only a handful of non-Asian actors in the cast. So he wasn't, He wasn't even sure how to sell it at the time.
Right. Which now people would look at it and be like, naturally, in a movie like this, there should be limited, white people in the filming of it.
Yeah. But like, as we know, over the years, it just became a huge cult classic thanks to the home video release and stuff.
Yeah, and there's fans to this day that still love the movie.
Just a few little tidbits of information kind of just regarding various aspects of the film. In an early scene set at the airport, a street gang has kidnapped Wang's fiance, and they are speeding through the underground park toward Wang and Jack, who dive out of the way just in time right before the car is about to hit them. Watching the scene carefully, you can actually spot that John Carpenter shot the scene backwards with the actors performing all movements in reverse. The scene was then played forward and sped up substantially. The dramatic scene was shot using this reverse method not to confuse actors and crew for the safety reasons due to the speed of the vehicles and lack of stunt doubles.
I did not know that.
Yeah.
I always thought it was a weird scene, but I mean...
It did look awkward, didn't it? I remember watching it, and I knew about that before I watched it, so I kind of looked out for it. I'm like, oh yeah, that does look a little just a little askew. Things just look a little off there.
Man, yeah, because I didn't see that, but now I'm like, oh, now I totally see it. Like if I go to watch it again, I will catch it and be like, yeah, that's totally backwards.
Yeah. The Chinese characters in the main title translates to evil spirits make a big scene in little spiritual state.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know.
It fits with the movie.
It does. The three Storm characters, as we already discussed, they inspired Mortal Kombat characters in the classic video game. So the three Storm characters are a copy of the three assassins in a 1973 film called Kozur Akami.
Just kind of like a tribute to it.
Yeah.
That's cool.
I mean, if you've seen the movie, you can see that they do look like those characters.
Yeah, when they're in their fighting garb, it's a little out of place than everybody else. It's a little bit more old school than everybody else's.
Speaking of the fighting garb, it's kind of funny how when I was watching it this time, I just thought it was funny how they would go from their really cool costumes to these like really ugly 80s style suits.
Right.
I'm like, just stay in the cool costumes. I mean, you're already showing yourself and walking around in public in them, but when you're inside this building, you're going to dress nice.
Right.
I guess it's work. I guess it's work dress.
Right. When they're in their fighting garb, that's casual, but they got to put on their suits for every other time.
During the wedding scene where Lopan is putting the needle of love into Mayo Lin, James Hong jabbed the actress Susie Pai too hard, and you can see her flinch as he puts the needle in her.
Oh, that's messed up.
Yeah. Actors got to be careful. You can't go jabbing needles into people's necks.
Right. Because, yeah, she does react, but I thought that was just her being a great actress. Nope, she's just getting stabbed.
Yeah, she's just getting stabbed.
That's how that goes.
One of the more difficult effects to pull off in the film was the floating eyeball, the spy for Lopan.
Yes.
It was powered by several puppeteers and dozens of cables to control its facial expressions, and it was shot with a matting system specifically designed for it.
Crazy.
The creature creator, Steve Johnson, said in an interview, "Probably the most complicated thing we did on the film, and I think it may have been one of the most complicated things ever at the time, was the flying eye. The general idea is that it's the mythological Chinese creature that is Lopan's way of seeing remotely. So this flying eye will go out and get information and bring it back to Lopan. It was just a huge, surrealistic ball of eyes. The challenge was, how do you make a ball of eyes look realistic and be able to emote? The only way to do it was with a huge animatronic puppet. But imagine how many motors had to go inside of it. The eyes all had to have upper and lower blinks. Some of the eyeballs were actually on stalks, which could retract into it and poke out. And then, of course, he had a face, and he had a mouth. He had a tongue. We had so many motors in that. So they had all these guys just in there, like, trying to control. It seems like a nightmare to try and pull off. These days, it's easily done with CGI.
Right.
But one of the things that makes this movie so cool is the fact that they did do this practically. They built this floating eyeball and brought it to life for the film, which was so cool.
And disturbing. He has the worst tongue just above Jabba the Hutt. But is there a little eyeball on the end of that tongue? Did you see that? It's gross. That thing is nasty. Yeah, that, I mean, I had dreams about that thing. It was
yeah, the floating
gross.
eyeball is definitely a cringy creature.
Yeah, but it worked. It was
To
fun.
see floating in your room at night for sure.
No, absolutely not. And it's such a pleasure to see him die.
In the scene where Kurt Russell is attempting to infiltrate the brothel, he is wearing the same outfit that he wore in the 1980 film Used Cars. I thought that was funny.
Yeah.
Because I didn't notice that until I started digging into this.
Right? The yellow shirt, the tie. But I'm telling you, that's his hero moment of the whole movie.
Yep.
Yeah, he helps out a lot. And I say that in quotes. But that's the only, like, he was there for that part. Once that was done, everything was up to the Cheng Sin.
In the last scene featuring the character Lightning, the last frame of the lightning effect forms the Chinese characters for Carpenter, which is obviously a tribute to the director.
Right.
Right before the end credits, when Jack Burton is driving his truck and talking on a CB radio, he says, "You just listen to the old Pork Chop Express here." I can't do it, Jack Burton. You just listen to the old Pork Chop Express here now and take his advice on a dark and stormy night when the lightning's crashing and the thunder's rolling and there's rain coming down. And that pays homage to the names of the three storms of Lopan's bodyguards, the guys he's been fighting the whole time.
Yeah,
a fun little thing I
was
didn't
cool.
notice until I watched it this last time. I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
all right, yeah, I see what he's doing here. Kurt Russell suffered a bad case of the flu during the scene just after the brothel. So the sweat on his body is real, caused by the fever. Because remember back in the day when you could actually like work when you were sick?
Right.
Now people will kill you if you go to work showing up sick.
Yeah. You sneeze, everyone wants to punch you in the face.
Exactly.
Yep.
But yeah, back in the day, people used to go to work with fevers all the time.
Now, nope. Nope. If you even feel a little bit sick, stay home.
In regards to the lipstick all over Russell's face, which I love that little touch of detail in this film and that character.
Right.
The actor shared how that came about, saying, "One time Kim and I kissed, and then I noticed that the crew was smirking. I had lipstick all over my face. I said, you know, I've always wondered about that in kissing scenes. How come the big red lipstick is always magically not there when the guy pulls back? I looked at John and I started laughing. I said, let's leave the lipstick on, at least for a couple of scenes. And he said, all right. I've always admired John for that because the audience is going to go, what the F?
Yeah. But it's true. Like, these women are wearing tons of makeup and they make out and everybody's clean.
Yeah, but I love that about this. I love that aspect of the character with Jack running around with lipstick on his face is just great. It like
Right.
takes the movie to like this level that movies don't. It just adds that little extra like umph to it,
Right.
to the character, and I love
A little
that.
bit of reality.
Yeah.
I like it.
In regards to the fight sequences, James Hong, who played Lo Pan, said, "The director did not know exactly how we should portray the battle scene between Victor and I. But Victor and I had seen all these old Chinese films where the two opponents would fight each other with this hand magic, where things would come out of their hands. And that's an old Chinese fable type magic lighting. So Victor decided to throw balls at me of fire, and I invented that I would cross my little fingers and little rays would come out, and Carpenter put that in the film." So those things were just brought up by the actors. That wasn't in the script. They're just like, hey, let's just do this. This could be cool.
And luckily, the special effects team was up for it too.
Yeah. They all rolled with it.
Yeah, and it's a scene that if you've seen the movie, you know exactly what he's talking about.
Exactly. The interior of A-Chen's garage/office is Fire Station 23, which is the same building used as the business interior for Ghostbusters.
Man, another great movie. We'll talk about that later.
So during the wedding scene towards the end of the film, the Lo Pan marriage scene, there's this whole set, this huge, big set. And when talking about it, James Hong revealed that the whole set with the mouth coming down the steps of the escalator, it was very dangerous. It was a very narrow escalator, and I was on lifts, 12-inch lifts. All of a sudden, John said, "We don't have time. We've got to do it right away." I said, "Can't you get a stuntman? Get George. Can't you get a stuntman? Get George Chung. He's my stuntman." He said, No, you just got to step in. So with that long rope, I tried to put it over the lifts. And when I stepped on just the parts before you go down, the real escalator, I said, "Oh my God, this is going to be my last scene." It looked like I was fierce, but I was trembling. That's the way it was. Everything had to be real.
I had no idea. That is a cool scene, though.
Yep. John Carpenter at one point yelled at a special effects coordinator after one of the squibs on the wall went off much sooner than expected. Kurt Russell said at the time it was one of the few times he ever saw Carpenter lose his cool on set.
That's not too bad, though.
But you can't really help it, too. I mean, squibs are like unpredictable.
Unpredictable. Yes.
The movie was parodied in Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, A Chinatown Ghost Story in 2014, an episode of the animated Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. They even had James Hong provide the voice of a near-carbon copy of Lo Pan in the film, but his name was Ho Chan.
Oh, that's a big difference.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This was the last studio film that John Carpenter worked on at the end of the 80s due to various problems he experienced during the production of the film. Apparently, the studio head at the time, Lawrence Gordon, was constantly interfering, and right up until the movie's release date, and Carpenter is just kind of fed up with it. His two follow-up films included Prince of Darkness in 1987 and They Live in 1988. And those were both independently made films, and they had no studio interference and were distributed by Universal Pictures. So he got to make those films the way he wanted without being bugged by anybody. As we talked about before, the critics hated the movie. They tore it apart when it was released. Russell said, in regards to that and the marketing plan, he said, "Without opening up old wounds, that picture really suffered a strange marketing plan. It was all on Jack Burton. It was all based on trying to theoretically get the audience interested in who is this guy?" And the answer was, "I've got no effing idea." Goldman added, I have a different view of what happened. We gave them something like Raiders of the Lost Ark and Romancing the Stone, and they made the decision to turn it into something like Buckaroo Banzai. Buckaroo Banzai was a really interesting movie, and I like it a lot, but it was a bomb. Which makes sense. It is comparable to that movie for sure in certain ways, because they both have that weird setting and vibe. Both are great films, but they both did not do well at the box office because apparently the studios at the time didn't know how to market anything.
Right.
It's funny that the studios were making these movies without knowing how to market them. You'd think they'd know what they wanted to do.
Well, the good thing is that it got released. At least they didn't stop it from getting out to the fans because, I mean, we loved it. We know tons of people who love the movie. I owned the VHS tape back in the day.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it sucks that it bombed at the box office, but it's still fun that it's out there.
Exactly. So, there is a video game adaptation of Big Trouble in Little China.
No way.
Yeah. It was on the Commodore 64, the ZX Spectrum, and the Amstrad CPC.
Ooh.
Did you ever play it, Billy?
If I had it, I would play the crap out of that thing.
I never those video game systems, I never owned any of those. So I've never played it.
I've never played it.
But they're side-scrolling games which went from right to left and allowed players to fight as Jack Wang or Egg Shen. And while the game, obviously, the movie wasn't successful, so the game tie-in wasn't successful either.
Right. Well, yeah, you kind of lost audience on that. But yeah, I always wanted a Commodore 64 when I was young, but never got one.
Yeah.
We should see if we could find one just for this game.
It'd be interesting to see what that game plays like.
Right.
Now, we've never seen a sequel to Big Trouble in Little China on the big screen.
Mm-hmm.
I've always thought a sequel would be cool.
Well, look, there should have been, because when you're getting to the last scene.
Yeah, the scene sets it up for a continuation of the story when that monster crawls out and makes that.
Right. It's leaving San Francisco. It's going to go influence in a different place. But no, we got nothing. It's probably because it bombed.
So while we've never seen a sequel on the big screen, the story did continue in comic book form thanks to Boom Studios.
That's fantastic.
Yes. So there are a couple collections of comics here. We've got Big Trouble in Little China.
Mm-hmm.
And there are 6 volumes, 25 issues.
Mm-hmm.
And then there is Big Trouble in Little China, Old Man Jack, which consists of 3 volumes and 12 issues.
Interesting.
Yeah. So the first one, Big Trouble in Little China, Jack Burton, a macho truck driver adventure, shook the pillars of heaven when he defeated the evil sorcerer Lopan. He even helped his best friend Wang save his fiancée from the source's evil clutches. Now Wang's wedding has been invaded by evil forces with one thing on their minds: revenge against Jack Burton.
Ooh.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yep. When it comes to Old Man Jack, this is the description for that. The world may have gone to hell, but old Jack Burton is in his own personal heaven, spending the literal end of days in the last remaining refuge on God's green earth, Florida. The apocalypse is easy living when you have all the cold beer you want. But when his old nemesis, David Lopan, reaches out to Jack for help, he'll have to dust off and gas up the old Pork Chop Express to once again save the world from evil forces.
I love that.
Those definitely seem like they'd be worth reading.
Yeah, I'm gonna be buying these soon.
Now, though, I don't know if this is still happening, but a couple of years ago, it was announced that Dwayne Johnson was going to be starring in a reboot of Big Trouble in Little China.
Really?
Yes. In regards to that sequel, when it was brought up to Russell, he said, Dwayne Johnson as Jack Burton? Hey, I'm sure he'll come up with a good take on it. I've got no problem with that. Movies are movies. You throw the dice and you see what happens at the end of the day. And all that ever matters is you make a movie that holds up. And John Carpenter's Big Trouble in Little China holds up. Now, I don't know what's happening with that movie. I haven't heard any updates on it for a while. But at one point, Johnson was doing that.
He seems like one of the only people that could actually live up to or bring back the Jack Burton gravitas. You know, he looks like he'd be the main character.
I don't even know. I mean, it's Dwayne Johnson, so it's just going to be Dwayne Johnson. He always plays Dwayne Johnson.
That's true.
He really just plays himself in the movie in the films that he stars in. So we're just going to get Dwayne Johnson.
But it would be interesting to see him play Dwayne Johnson, but as the sidekick, thinking he's the main character. I think that would be fantastic. I think it would be an interesting dynamic to see him do that.
That would be interesting. We'll see it. We'll see if it even happens. Who knows at this point?
Yeah, but if it does, it does. If it doesn't, I'm happy with the original.
Now, this movie is filled with so many quotes.
Oh,
so many.
Out of control.
Do you have a quote that you want to share?
Oh, I have. Anything that Jack Burton has said is quotable, but we're going to go over some more. One of my favorite quotes is when he walks into the building and says, "Everybody relax, I'm here." Like he's a savior and no one pays attention to him. I love that. But so it's a little bit longer of a quote.
Uh-huh.
But I love it when he's talking about Lopan. All right, you ready?
Yep.
He said, "When some wild-eyed 8-foot-tall maniac grabs your neck, taps the back of your favorite head up against a barroom wall, and he looks you crooked in the eye and he asks if you had paid your dues, you just stare that big sucker right back in the eye and you remember what old Jack Burton always says at a time like that. Have you paid your dues, Jack? Yes, sir. Check is in the mail."
That was actually the quote I picked, too.
That's a fantastic one.
That's funny. So I'm not going to choose another quote, but I'm going to pull out one of my favorite Jack Burton scenes.
Yes.
So
do it.
When they pull up in the trunk, when Jack Burton and his friend, they're in the truck and they're watching this fight break out on the streets. You remember that at the beginning of the film?
Yep, in the alleyway, yeah.
Yeah, okay. So you've got these evil guys and these good guys, and they're coming together and they're ready to fight. And Jack is in his truck. He's just sitting in his truck, and he just pulls out his knife in his truck.
Yep.
And he doesn't do anything. He just sits there, knife in hand, in frame, every time we see him as he's watching. Like, these guys are doing all kinds of epic kung fu moves, and Jack's got this knife.
Of course. Oh, I love that scene. That's one of the best fight scenes, too. Like, the comedy of flashing back and forth between him and Wang sitting in the truck, and then all the fighting that goes on outside.
Yeah.
It's fantastic. I love that scene.
One other thing about that scene that I meant to bring up earlier, I might as well bring it up now. So, when the elemental martial artists, the lightning, the rain, when they all come down, right? And they've got their special weapons, right?
Yes. Yep.
So one guy totally forgot about this, but one guy pulls out these hands and they look like back scratchers.
Right, and he extends them out like, "I'm going to get you."
I'm like, are those back scratchers? All right, cool. And then you've got the guy with like the spinning things on his hands.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what? and he's just like, I'm like, what is he doing? What do those even do? Do they like tear people's faces off if they get too close?
It's just a blender. That's it.
They seem like the most ridiculous weapons, but I loved it.
The back scratchers always got me. Because I'm always like, what? They're just mini extensions of his hands.
I know. So funny.
I'm going to get you.
Yep.
Oh, man.
All right, everybody. Thank you for joining us on this podcast. We had a blast watching this movie again and talking about it. And just, if you haven't seen it in a while, just follow good old jerk. Just follow
good old jerk.
Just follow good old Jack Burton's advice and watch the movie, even though he never gave the advice to watch the movie. You should just watch it anyway. Refamiliarize yourself with it. It's fun. Also, don't forget to follow us on Facebook and Twitter. I'm sharing all kinds of behind-the-scenes photos and videos and stuff that I find online on those. So if you want to check out some of that stuff, you can follow us at GT Secret Level on Twitter or Facebook. Leave a review. 5 stars would be great.
Good or bad, but if you're going to make it bad, please explain why and be as detailed as possible.
Yeah. Look, we know we're not a perfect podcast. We know that. Sometimes our quality is good. Sometimes it's bad. Like, we're still getting used to this audio stuff. We're still trying to figure it out. So just bear with us. As it goes on, we hope we figure things out and it gets better. But we're just rolling with the punches and having fun doing it. So that's why we're here.
And please, let us know if there's something that we've missed or something you would like us to cover that you want to just hear about, talk about. Let us know.
Yeah, and if you're on the social media stuff already, reach out to us and talk to us. We'll talk back. So, and then of course you can always see what we're doing when we're talking about movies on GeekTyrant.com. So that's where every day we post hundreds of articles on like movies and shit. So go there. We're always talking about stuff. This is life.
Yeah, please get involved, guys, because this is just the tip of the iceberg. We have so many more things coming out. Just bear with us. Follow us. We might slip out a little bit of what's coming down the pipe. Just pay attention. Things are happening.
Yes, things are happening. All right, everybody. Thank you very much. And enjoy whatever it is you're doing after you finish listening to this podcast.
Thanks, guys. We appreciate it.
Take care.
So,